name's Kaci Gilbert, and I'm the New Hampshire State Executive for Generation Connection. Today we're going to talk about the start of the National Football League, and this is an article from History.com titled The Birth of the National Football League. 14 men huddled inside the Jordan and Hupmobile automobile showroom in downtown Canton, Ohio, on the night of September 17, 1920, were finally ready to strike a deal. They had come to Ralph Hayes' dealership not in search of a new set of wheels, however, but a professional football league to save from themselves. By 1920, pro football remained thoroughly overshadowed by the college game, and bats and confined mostly to small Midwestern industrial cities. Even worse for team owners, they were bleeding cash because of soaring player salaries and intense bidding wars as they poached players from other squads. The owners of these independent pro teams coveted a strong league, such as the one baseball had, in order to gain more control over the sport and their finances. Hay, the owner of the reigning Ohio League champion, Canton Bulldogs, had invited representatives from 3 other in-state teams to an organizational meeting at his showroom on August 20th, where they agreed on a broad outline of a new association. According to the Canton Evening Repository, the goal of the new venture would be to raise the standard of professional football in every way possible, to eliminate bidding for players between rival clubs, and to secure cooperation in the formation of schedules. Nearly a month later, a deal was ready to be struck. Hay gathered representatives from 11 professional football clubs sprinkled across Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, and New York. Akron Pros, Canton Bulldogs, Cleveland Indians, Daytona Triangles, Decatur Staniels, Hammond Pros, Massillon Tigers, Muncie Flyers, Racine Cardinals, Rochester Jeffersons, and Rock Island Independents. So unfamiliar were the teams that even the meeting minutes mistakenly listed the Cardinals, who played home games from Normal Park on Chicago's Racine Avenue, as being from the Wisconsin city of that same name. Unable to squeeze into Hayes' office on that steamy night, the football pioneers, including Jim Thorpe and George Hollis, sat on the running boards and fenders of $3,000 cars in the showroom and grabbed cold beer bottles from an icy bucket as they hammered out an agreement. According to the meeting minutes typed on letterhead from the Akron professional football team, the first item of business was an inauspicious one: the withdrawal of Massillon before the league even officially formed. Then the men moved and seconded a proposal to form a confederation known as the American Professional Football Association. The new league needed a president to lead the organization and be its public face, and the choice required little debate. The first game involving an APFA team took place on September 26, 1920 at Douglas Park in Rock Island, Illinois, as the hometown Independents flattened the St. Paul's Ideals 48-0. The first head-to-head battles in the league occurred 1 week later, as Dayton topped Columbus 14-0 and the Rock Island pasted Muncie 45-0. While the gridiron dimensions were the same in 1920 as today, the pro game itself was quite different. Forward passes were rare, and coaching from the sidelines was prohibited, and players competed on both offense and defense. Money was so tight that Hollis carried equipment, wrote press releases, sold tickets, taped ankles, played, and coached for the Decatur clubs. As opposed to today's standard 16-game schedule, clubs in 1920 scheduled their own opponents and could play non-league and even college squads that counted towards their record. With no established guidelines, the number of games played and the quality of opponents scheduled by APFA teams varied, and the league did not maintain any official standings. The Buffalo All-Americans, Chicago Tigers, Columbus Panhandles, and Detroit Heralds joined the league before the end of the season, raising the total number of teams to 14, but the inaugural season was a struggle. Games received little attention from fans and even less from the press. According to Robert W. Patterson's book, Pigskin: The Early Years of Pro Football, APFA games averaged crowds of 4,241. The association bylaws called for teams to pay a $100 entry fee, but no one ever did. Muncie played only 1 game before dropping out before the end of the season, which concluded on December 19th. At the conclusion of the season, there were no playoffs, let alone a Super Bowl. It took more than 4 months before the league even bothered to crown a champion. Much as college football did for decades, the APFA determined its victor by ballot. On April 30th, 1921, team representatives voted the Akron Pros, who completed the season undefeated with 8 wins, 3 ties, while yielding only a total of 7 points, the champion, in spite of protests by the 1-loss teams in Decatur and Buffalo, who each had tied Akron and had more wins. The victor received a silver loving cup donated by the Sporting goods company Bruswick, Ballack and Colander. While players were not given diamond-encrusted rings, they did receive golden fobs in the shape of footballs inscribed with the world's world champions. Needing a leader with greater business, Ackman team owners replaced Thorpe with Columbus Panhandle's owner, Joe Carr. In 1922, the APFA rebranded itself as the National Football League. While the 20s roared, the NFL sputtered. College football remained king, drawing crowds as big as 100,000, while the NFL franchises came and went. Only after signing of college phenomenon Red Grange in 1925 did pro football begin to increase in popularity. The NFL's first season was so quickly forgotten in the collective sports memory that the league's official record books listed the 1920 champion as undecided until the 1970s. The whereabouts of the Bruswick Ballack Colander Cup, only given out that one time, are unknown. The legacy of the APFA franchises continues on, however. The Racine Cardinals now play in Arizona. The DeCarter Daniels moved to Chicago in 1921 and changed their name to the Bears the following year. 10 APFA players, along with Carr, are enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which opened its doors in 1963, not far from the Canton automobile dealership that gave birth to the NFL in 1920. Now to Tiffany White with the NFL's response to COVID.
Hi everyone! Thank you, Kaci. My name is Tiffany White and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Generation Connection. And after learning a little bit about the history of the NFL, I'm going to be talking about how the NFL has reacted to the coronavirus and what this season is looking like. And of course, had to wear my Patriots jersey to represent New England. And so the article I'll be reading is Here's How the NFL Has Handled the Coronavirus Pandemic by Daniel Canova. Since the pandemic swept across the United States, it not only has affected the NFL in a variety of ways, but it also interrupted the NBA, NHL seasons and delayed the start of Major League Baseball until July. College football has had several conferences, including the Big Ten, postpone their seasons, and for the sports that have resumed play, they've either turned the rest of their respective seasons into the bubble format, like the NBA and NHL, or they're playing with no fans in their ballparks like the MLB. Everything and everyone has been affected, and for the short term at least, it seems as if coronavirus is here to stay. On Thursday, the defending Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs, will kick off their NFL season as they host the Houston Texans. The Chiefs have already announced that 22% of Arrowhead Stadium will be filled with fans in the efforts to follow coronavirus safety guidelines. Here's how the pandemic has affected the NFL since it hit home in March. The NFL Draft is probably the second largest sports spectacle every year, only behind the Super Bowl. Originally, the draft was supposed to be held in Las Vegas for the first time, but because of the coronavirus, the league was forced to move to a virtual format. Despite the drastic change, the draft saw over 55 million total viewers over the 3-day event, which set all-time highs for media consumption, up 16% from 2019. There was an average audience of 8.4 million viewers all 3 days across ABC, ESPN, NFL Network, ESPN Deportes, and digital channels, which easily broke the previous high of 6.2 million viewers in 2019. The NFL also raised over $100 million in coronavirus relief to help support 6 national nonprofits. As of September 3rd, 26 of the 32 NFL teams have announced that they will start the season without fans. 5 teams said fans will be allowed in the stadiums at reduced capacity. 1 team continues to work with the state task force and hopes to also have fans. On July 22nd, the NFL announced that all fans attending NFL games this season will be required to wear masks. Because NFL teams will have minimal fans in attendance at games, or no fans at all, teams will be allowed to pump in noise to stimulate home crowds. Teams with limited fans, such as the Chiefs and Dolphins, will be allowed to use piped-in audio, according to Troy Vincent, the NFL's Executive Vice President and Football Operations. The NFL doesn't think that there's a competitive advantage for teams with fans in the stands. We do not believe it's a competitive advantage, Commissioner Roger Goodell said Tuesday. We discussed it very early on with our competition committee and with our clubs. We do not see that. We obviously have varying capacities across the league, and from our standpoint, we want to invite our fans in as if we can do it safely and if we can do it with the full support of local officials. We think fans want to come to the stadium. The Detroit Lions and Denver Broncos publicly showed how they were combating coronavirus during the training camp. The Broncos installed a misting booth, which sprays a disinfectant on players. "We want to go above and beyond to protect the players," a Broncos representative told TMZ. "The misting booth is an additional safety measure that sprays a safe medical-grade disinfectant on players and their equipment when entering and exiting the practice fields." In April, star defensive end Ron Miller tested positive for the virus. Miller, who has asthma, recovered and immediately called on others to take this health threat seriously. The Lions installed glass dividers between each player's locker room station. Each locker appeared to be more spread out than normal. The Lions are among teams who are considered to have the best infectious disease emergency response plan. ESPN reported that the team's plan also addresses how to handle packages delivered to the facility, changes to the building's HVAC system, and specific guidelines on preparing meals served to players. The NFL updated its game day protocols by requiring each coach and staff member in the bench area to wear a mask and reducing the size of each team's travel party. Owners will also have to follow the COVID-19 testing requirements to gain access to the locker room, field, and team charter. Goodell said the league, the Players Association, and medical experts have developed a comprehensive set of protocols that put us in the best possible position to compete in the season, culminating with the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. There were 4 new confirmed positive tests among players and 6 new confirmed positive among other personnel from 58,621 tests administered to a total of 8,739 players and team personnel between August 21st and 29th, the league said. "We have been very fortunate that cases of COVID-19 are very low across the league," Goodell said Tuesday. "It's a testament to the plans, but most importantly to the due diligence of the players, the teams, and their staffs. I would tell you that we have more work to do. We are not going to get comfortable. We will remain vigilant, resilient, flexible, and basically adapt to circumstances as needed with public health as our #1 priority as we have all this offseason." A total of 68 players opted out of the 2020 season due to the pandemic. 22 offensive linemen and 11 defensive linemen are among those sitting out. Players with medical opt-out will receive $350,000 stipend, with those voluntarily opting out receiving $150,000 as an advance against future salaries. There were also 11 wide receivers, 8 linebackers, 6 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, and 3 tight ends and safety who chose to opt out. There were no quarterbacks, kickers, or punters. The New England Patriots had the most players opt out. 8 decided not to play in 2020. Including linebacker Donta Hightower, safety Patrick Chung, and offensive lineman Marcus Cannon. Other key players that have opted out include Chiefs running back Damian Williams, Giants offensive lineman Nate Soldier, and Jets linebacker CJ Mosley. If a player decides to walk away after the deadline because of a changed medical circumstance, he would get a stipend, unless he already exceeded the value of the stipend in the time that he was active. There will be no financial compensation for voluntary future opt-outs. There also are salary cap reliefs attached to the opt-outs. Contract bonuses payments are due to be applied to the cap in 2020 and will be delayed a year even if the bonus has not been paid. Thank you so much for listening in. We are so happy to have you. If you have any questions, feel free to use the comments or you can email us and we'll be happy to get back. I hope you enjoy the NFL season this year and you learn a little bit more about the history and their reaction to COVID. And always remember, go Patriots!